Hello, and welcome back to our podcast. My name is Dr. Alison Chwara. I'm the founder and CEO at Human Focus Limited, a company that is dedicated to creating happier and healthier workforces and workplaces and communities. I am so excited to welcome you back on yet another episode where we are going to look at all of the rich human experiences, our culture, our thoughts, and how those allow us to grow as people. Now, as the festive season approaches and the air is filled with somewhat a promise of a sense of togetherness, I want us to go on a journey where we ask ourselves to pause, reflect, and release. Today, I want to talk about the art of forgiveness. For as long as I've known forgiveness, it's not just an act, but it's a really deep journey that can lead us to some extraordinary growth, but most importantly, huge sense of healing and a huge sense of freedom. We will look into how science, spirituality, and our social connections, and all of the wisdom from across the globes and across time will help us bring meaning into the art of forgiveness. And along the way, I will share and question some things. And I hope that this will have some sort of heart-long sense for you, and an episode that I hope carries weight for you. Because forgiveness isn't just a gift we give to others. It's a gift that, in fact, transforms the giver. I want to look at what science tells us. Science says forgiveness, you see, is not just a moral virtue. I don't know if I can say this, but it's a psychological miracle in my view. It is a miracle indeed. When we hold on to resentment, our brains kick into somewhat a survival mode. And that part of our brain, the fear center, lights up. And it triggers all of these cascades of stress hormones like cortisol to just play havoc with ourselves. And it's this response that is usually designed to protect us actually in moments of danger. But when it's so prolonged and we are holding on to hurt, and when that anger just festers about, it does take its toll on us. And this is when you start to hear people having chronic stress, which then impacts on their immune system, their well-being, their mental well-being, and even, for some, health of their hearts. But forgiveness. Yes, forgiveness. Forgiveness is a reset. It's a reset. A researcher known as Luskin from Stanford University was able to show that forgiving others or even ourselves does actually reduce our stress. It improves our sleep and it lowers symptoms of depression. Then I think that forgiveness is vital to today's world. It's as if the act of forgiveness itself flips a switch in our brains, right? And it starts to calm the fear center. And then it does a beautiful thing, which is it activates the prefrontal cortex that I always talk about. And it's that part of the brain that is associated with empathy, rationality, and all of our emotional regulation. And somebody tells me psychological safety or forgiveness is not a miracle. It truly is, I believe. But also science affirms what also an ancient African proverb tells us, which says, he who forgives ends the quarrel. Forgiveness doesn't just resolve disputes. It actually goes beyond that. It does heal the soul. And it actually does something strange in terms of how it rewires our brain. And it reminds us that peace actually begins with us. And it begins within. I want to take you on a somewhat spiritual journey beyond science, if you allow me. So it's taking this into the sacred. So forgiveness is just incredible paradox, isn't it? Across time and traditions, it has been almost described as if it's an act that sees and transcends our understanding. It's a kind of alchemy that turns our pain, our hurt, into peace. I want to wander on the spiritual pathway of the world where forgiveness is not just a gesture, but it's a real declaration of us saying, I want freedom for my soul. So we'll go on those spiritual pathways, if you allow me. And I love to visit many different parts of the world within our episodes. So imagine standing at the foot of the cross in a moment of somewhat unimaginable pain and a huge sense of betrayal, and then hearing these weighty words, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. These were the weighty words spoken by Jesus in the moment of his absolute most emotional and physical suffering. I want to call it hurts. It was deep. And it really does invite us into this untold mystery of forgiveness. There was no word of condemnation that he said, but forgiveness. What kind of strength does it take to actually forgive in the midst of our suffering, our hurting, our bleeding, our brokenness? What kind of strength does it take to forgive? To forgive, I feel, is a major act of kindness. It's an incredible paradox, like I said. To forgive not because someone deserves it, but that you deserve, or your heart deserves, the freedom that it seeks. It's a love so radical that it actually rewrites what it means to be human. It's a language so deep and almost unconditional that it breaks the cycle of pain. Imagine being able to break the cycle of pain for yourself. It doesn't take the person that hurt you to do it. Forgive them before they ask for the apology. Now, I want to enter into the stillness of a Buddhist temple. Here, forgiveness is tied to compassion. The Buddha does teach that holding on to anger is like grasping a really hot coal with the intent of throwing it at someone else. Can you imagine? And yet you are the one who gets burned. Forgiveness here is less about the other person and more about freeing ourselves from those hot flames of resentment. It's not an obligation. It's actually a point of liberation. And the Buddha goes on to teach that you will not be punished for your anger. You will be punished by your anger. So it's not about the offender, right? Can we agree on that? It's not about releasing what we feel we're holding on to. It's about releasing that toxic grip of anger that is so hot in our hands. It's burning us. And this anger has this incredibly toxic grip on our souls. So therefore, forgiveness in Buddhism is like really unclenching your fists after you've been holding it so tight for far too long. It's relief. It's a release. And it's a renewal all at once. It's a gift really, isn't it? Away from Asia and back into the hearty laughter of Africa. Please close your eyes and picture this. The now vibrant streets of South Africa. I stress now in capital letters because it wasn't always like this. It wasn't always vibrant. The wounds of apartheid were raw. Imagine this, the pain fresh. Picture a courtroom where the victims and the perpetrators of apartheid stood face to face. That's intense. That is intense. And the darling Desmond Tutu, presiding over the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, if anyone recalls, goes on to say, without forgiveness, there is no future. Now, some could have said that is madness. But forgiveness didn't mean forgetting or dismissing the pain. Let me emphasize this. It meant choosing humanity over vengeance, a choice that today redefines an entire nation's soul. He called for forgiveness, not like I said, as a way to forget, but as a way to heal. He said, forgiveness is not weak. It takes courage to actually face anger and the pain to say, do you know what? I'm done with this. Imagine the strength it takes to choose humanity over vengeance in that case, in that intense case. Here, forgiveness was just not a personal act, but it was really a collective act of healing. I think this is as tense as it gets when it comes to heights of forgiving. Let's listen to the whisper of the incredible Sufi poet Rumi, who I absolutely adore, and I usually use him and quote him in my episodes. He tells us that be like a tree and let the dead leaves drop. Isn't that just super beautiful? Almost fantabulous, isn't it? Forgiveness is this sense, it gives us this sense like it's autumn. We are letting go of that no longer serves us. So that spring can arrive with its renewal. I think that's beautiful. From autumn, dropping off the leaves into renewal, a spring, a whole new spring. Can you imagine how freeing that is? To release without regret, and what no longer serves your growth. Let it go. Forgiveness is in this sense, it's like it almost feels to me almost whimsical. It's like a dance. It's like turning away from pain and moving towards joy. Is this idea that you're dancing away from everything that's hurt you into an era of something more beautiful. But until we forgive, we almost remain locked in this tight knot of pain and locked out of the possibilities of just really enjoying and experience healing and freedom. And almost locks us out of the possibility of even peace when it's at national level. What price would you say, or would you even pay for the peace of your own mind? Can you feel the heartbeat of forgiveness here? Each tradition has taught us that forgiveness is not just an act, but it's an essence. It's a way of living that grounds us in love, that grounds us in this idea that it is a psychological miracle, and it allows us to soar or move towards a real sense of freedom. Forgiveness also does play a crucial role in just how we live our lives. Think about it. What would our relationships or our communities or even our societies or our network groups look like if every wrong, every little hurt, big hurt remained unresolved? If that remained unresolved, what I know is resentment left unchecked builds walls where bridges should really stand. In many cultures, like I referenced earlier, forgiveness is not just personal, it's communal. In parts of West Africa, for example, the Palaver system brings communities together, resolving conflicts through storytelling and dialogue. And I think that is as musical as it gets and as beautiful as it sounds. Everyone is heard, everyone contributes, and forgiveness restores harmony. So we are introducing a sense of psychological safety here for forgiveness to occur. I want to move on to the Maori culture that we all probably have heard of and read about. Waka Papa, which is WHAKAPAPA, reminds us of our interconnectedness. It says forgiveness is not about erasing the past, but forgiveness is about repairing the threads of community, ensuring that the collective fabric that we are remains whole. I love philosophy. And it's through these lenses that we will see that forgiveness is not a weakness at all. If I can call it in French, it's a bloody strength. It is a strength. It's that power that allows us to rebuild what anger, what hurt has broken. Do you see how powerful forgiveness is? Now, I want to share a simple story that someone once shared with me, and it sort of left and actually led me to wanting to do an episode on forgiveness after, of course, the apology one we did a couple of weeks ago. The story goes like this. There was a monk who carried a really heavy sack of stones on his journey in life. And at some point, each stone, he stated, represented a grudge he held onto. Now that's heavy stuff, isn't it? And as the days, the years, the months passed, his back began to actually hurt. His feet began to fail him. And his soul actually just began to get really tired and weary. And one person said to him, "Why do you always carry these stones?" And the monk actually simply replied, "Well, they sort of remind me of the people who have done so much wrong to me. But that's sad." And the passerby sort of said, "Really? And do you actually feel that they feel your burden?" It was a simple question that carried weight. It was a simple question that allowed him to stop, think, and reflect. And that night, something miraculous happened. The monk released all of the stones, one by one, into a river. And as the stones were thrown in, he felt lighter. He definitely felt freer, I believe. And I'm sure he gained this sense of peace and calmness that he hadn't had. Imagine having carried all of those stones everywhere you go, and all of a sudden you release. That's powerful. Forgiveness is like that. Don't you think? I really think so. It's about letting go of what weighs us down so that we're able to move forward unburdened. I don't want to carry any stones. I don't want to carry anyone's burden when they're not feeling it. Forgiveness is about allowing yourself into freedom. And as we enter this season of giving, Christmas, what if we gave the gift of forgiveness to those that maybe don't deserve it, but it's for ourselves, to allow ourselves to let go and let leave. And maybe give them that gift of forgiveness, not necessarily wrapped in paper, beautiful wrapping paper, but maybe offered with a really open heart, that it doesn't matter if they understand and understand the healing that this gives you. Forgiveness doesn't erase the past, or it doesn't excuse the pain or the hurt that has been caused, but it does something beyond, far beyond the word itself. It allows us to reclaim our lives. It allows us to reclaim our peace, our stillness in this chaotic world, and our power. Maya Angelou once said, forgiveness is powerful. She said, forgive yourself for not knowing what you didn't know before you learned it. Isn't that amazing? Forgive yourself for not knowing what you didn't know before you learned it. So I ask you, who or what do you need to forgive? Perhaps it's yourself. Perhaps it's your younger self. Perhaps it's somebody that hurt you without knowing. And here's a thought I want to leave with you. What happens when forgiveness feels impossible? Is healing still within our reach? Well, please join me next week, and of course next year. And perhaps along our journey with these episodes, we'll unravel this profound and beautiful question. That is, what happens when forgiveness feels impossible? I know for some of us, it does feel like that. And you ask yourself, is healing still within our reach? Well, stay connected and continue to explore the art of gifting that gift of forgiveness. Find it within yourself to wrap it up beautifully within an open heart. From me to you, from Human Focused Limited to your organization or to your community, and even maybe to your household, it's goodbye for now. Until next week. Bye-bye.